Let me tell you an interesting story. I've just got a few more minutes left. There was a guy who was a very smart young man and had a very tender heart. And he was walking back home when all of a sudden a lightning storm came. I mean, it happened real quick. Of course, he was very intimidated by the storm, but what really scared him is the lightning struck right in front of him and hit a tree. As a result, he fell down and cried to God, God, please spare my life. If you spare my life, I'll devote the rest of my life to you. He was scared he was going to die. Of course, Martin lived and he kept his promise. As a result, Martin Luther became a devout monk. And when I say a devout monk, I'm talking about a guy that even the priest would say, Martin, we can't handle any more of your confessions. He was so afraid he was going to offend God that every little tiny thing he would do, he would go and confess. Well, what he would do was really amazing. He'd get up in the morning and he would beat himself. He would get a whip and he would stand there and he would whip himself until blood would come out of his back, because he wanted to make sure that he would teach himself to obey God. Matter of fact, after he would get done with this, he would hope that somehow that God would accept him. As a devout Catholic, he would go to the church and he'd get on his knees and he would scrub the floor with his hands and wipe and just hope that somehow with his bloody hands that God would forgive him. Then one of those priests gave him a copy of the scriptures, and he started reading the scriptures. He'd never done that before. And he started reading, and he came across this amazing passage. The just shall live by faith. He never knew that. He thought you had to work your way to heaven. Long story short, this is a guy that when it was wintertime, he would sleep with no covers. When it was summertime, he would cover himself with as much covers as he could, make it as miserable for him. Sometimes he'd sleep on the floor. He wouldn't lay on his bed. He'd sleep on the floor, thinking maybe that would make God love me. But he started reading these passages, and it shocked him. He started reading about words about grace and forgiveness by faith. And as he was punishing himself, when he was tired, he would stay up and read the Bible, thinking, I'll punish myself and God will forgive me. And as he did, he started reading the Bible. And as he would stay up late into the wee hours of the night reading the Bible, God was speaking to him. Long story short, Martin Luther became a true believer. He started to realize, as Ephesians says, by grace are you saved through faith, that not of yourself, it is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. And for the first time in his life, he took a step of faith and put his trust in the finished work of Christ at Calvary, believing that the death, burial, and resurrection was true, and that if it was true, that my sins got paid for, and that I didn't have to burn a candle anymore. I didn't have to walk up them steps on my knees anymore. I don't have to go to another human being and confess my sins. God is taking care of it. Of course, Martin Luther became the man that was shocked when he went his first time to the Vatican, that city. At that city is these steps that you see these devout Catholics have finally arrived at the top. What they had to do, they had to start at the bottom and had to crawl up on their knees. And every time they did, they get so many days off of purgatory. If you make it all the way to the top, you get a special indulgence. And he would watch these people. He'd stand there and watch it. This is wrong. Of course, there was no other, there was just Catholics. But this is wrong. As a result, obviously,